The power grid does not explode in a cinematic fireball. It flickers. It hesitates. Transformers overheat quietly. Substations trip offline in cascading sequence. Fuel deliveries stall. Water pressure drops one neighborhood at a time. Within 72 hours, modern urban life begins to metabolize itself. Refrigerators warm. Elevators freeze between floors. Pharmacies close. ATMs blink useless error codes. In the first week, the most dangerous misconception spreads faster than any virus. That money will still matter. It will not. In the opening phase of systemic collapse, value detaches from currency and reattaches to physics. Energy, sanitation, temperature control, hydration, wound care, and information storage become the governing laws. And the objects that answer those laws, often cheap, overlooked, and gathering dust in ordinary households, will quietly outprice gold. Gold has cultural gravity because it is scarce, corrosion-resistant, and historically portable wealth. But gold does not purify water. It does not stop bleeding. It does not insulate a human body from hypothermia. It does not disinfect a wound or repair a broken seal. When supply chains fracture, what determines survival is not abstract wealth, but applied thermodynamics, microbiology, and materials science. The first item that will eclipse gold in practical value is unscented household bleach. Sodium hypochlorite is inexpensive, widely available, and chemically unremarkable in peacetime. During infrastructure failure, it becomes a microbial execution tool. The primary cause of mortality in prolonged disasters is not violence, it is waterborne disease. After earthquakes, hurricanes, and war-related grid failures, outbreaks of cholera, dysentery, and other diarrheal illnesses surge when sanitation systems collapse. The misunderstanding is that clear water is safe water. It is not. Pathogens are microscopic. Without chlorination or boiling, surface water and even municipal pipes quickly become vectors. The hidden science lies in oxidation chemistry. Sodium hypochlorite dissociates in water to form hypochlorous acid, a compound that penetrates microbial cell walls and denatures proteins, effectively dismantling bacteria and many viruses at the molecular level. Even at low concentrations, it disrupts enzymatic processes essential for survival of pathogens. Evidence from emergency management agencies consistently confirms that diluted bleach remains one of the most effective field-expedient disinfectants. In controlled concentrations, typically 8 drops of 6% unscented bleach per gallon of clear water, microbial loads are drastically reduced after adequate contact time. Hospitals rely on chlorine-based disinfectants because few organisms withstand proper dosing. The survival implication is stark. A gallon of bleach can treat thousands of gallons of water. In a collapsed environment, the ability to render contaminated water drinkable becomes currency. A small bottle can preserve dozens of lives over weeks. As stored water dwindles and rivers become contested sources, bleach becomes leverage, bargaining power, and insurance against epidemic mortality. As dehydration and disease begin thinning populations, sanitation transforms from hygiene preference into strategic defense. And as communities realize the lethal consequences of contaminated water, the second cheap item rises in value alongside it: heavy-duty contractor trash bags. Trash bags appear trivial in normal times. They are crumpled, replaceable, mundane. In a collapsed system, they become structural assets. The danger begins when waste management halts. Urban environments produce tons of garbage daily. Without removal, organic waste decomposes rapidly, attracting vermin and insects, accelerating pathogen spread. The misunderstanding is that trash bags are only for disposal. In survival physics, they are vapor barriers, water collectors, insulation liners, makeshift waterproofing membranes, emergency ponch, ground sheets, and containment systems for human waste. The hidden science is material impermeability. High-density polyethylene resists water penetration and slows vapor diffusion. That property, simple in design, interrupts moisture transfer and contamination pathways. Field evidence from disaster zones shows improvised latrine systems constructed with heavy plastic liners drastically reduce open defecation and surface contamination. In flooding scenarios, Plastic sheeting and bags serve as rain catchment devices, capturing potable water when positioned correctly. A single intact bag can line a backpack to keep clothing dry, preserving thermal regulation. Hypothermia does not require snow. It requires wet skin and wind. By reducing evaporative heat loss, plastic barriers can prevent fatal drops in core temperature. The survival implication is multiplicative utility. One object performing sanitation, hydration, and insulation roles simultaneously becomes invaluable when manufacturing stops. As sewage backs up and rodent populations surge, the line between cleanliness and contagion sharpens. Communities that improvise waste containment slow disease spread. Those that do not experience compounding outbreaks. As sanitation stabilizes temporarily, another overlooked threat intensifies: hemorrhage and infection from injury. The third item that will outprice gold is plain medical gauze and compression bandages. In stable societies, trauma care is minutes away. In systemic collapse, response times extend indefinitely. The danger lies not only in catastrophic injury, but in minor wounds left untreated. Without sterile environments, small lacerations become portals for bacteria. The misunderstanding is that first aid is basic knowledge and therefore low priority. In reality, hemorrhage is one of the fastest preventable causes of death. The hidden science revolves around pressure and clot formation. Direct compression increases localized tissue pressure above venous and arterial pressure, slowing blood flow and allowing platelets to aggregate and fibrin networks to form. Without sustained pressure, clotting is disrupted. Military and emergency medicine data consistently demonstrate that rapid application of pressure bandages dramatically reduces mortality in trauma before surgical care is available. Even simple sterile gauze, when applied properly, can control bleeding long enough for natural clotting mechanisms to function. Furthermore, sterile dressing material reduces bacterial load in open wounds, lowering infection rates in austere environments. The survival implication extends beyond individual injury. In a resource-scarce community, every able-bodied person represents labor capacity. Preventing infection preserves workforce strength. Gauze becomes a bridge between injury and recovery, maintaining group resilience. As minor conflicts over water or food escalate, so do lacerations, punctures, and blunt trauma. Infections left unchecked lead to sepsis, which in pre-antibiotic eras carried mortality rates exceeding 30%. With hospitals inaccessible, mechanical wound care becomes primary defense. As trauma risks escalate, another invisible killer emerges silently at night: hypothermia. The fourth cheap item that will surpass gold in value is the common wool blanket. Not designer outdoor gear, not high-tech thermal suits, simple wool. The danger of cold exposure is underestimated because modern heating masks its lethality. Hypothermia begins when core body temperature drops below 35 degrees Celsius. Cognitive impairment follows rapidly. Decision-making deteriorates. Paradoxical undressing, cardiac arrhythmias, and organ failure ensue. The misunderstanding is that insulation equals thickness. The hidden science lies in fiber structure. Wool fibers trap air within crimped matrices, creating thermal resistance while retaining insulating properties even when damp. Unlike cotton, which collapses and accelerates heat loss when wet, wool maintains loft and reduces conductive heat transfer. Historical data from polar expeditions and mountaineering incidents repeatedly confirm wool's superiority in moisture-prone cold conditions. In urban collapse, heating systems fail quickly without electricity or gas. Indoor temperatures in winter climates can fall below freezing within days. A single wool blanket can reduce convective heat loss significantly, particularly when layered. The survival implication is metabolic conservation. The human body burns calories to maintain core temperature. Food scarcity combined with cold exposure accelerates energy depletion. Insulation reduces caloric demand, extending survival on limited rations. Moreover, sleep quality improves with warmth, preserving cognitive clarity necessary for decision-making under stress. As temperatures fluctuate and fuel becomes scarce, thermal management becomes a daily negotiation with physics. And as nights grow colder, another need intensifies: reliable fire. The fifth inexpensive object that will become more valuable than precious metal is the simple metal lighter. Fire is chemistry controlled at human scale. It sterilizes water through boiling, cooks food to eliminate parasites, provides warmth and signals for rescue. The danger lies in assuming fire-making is primitive knowledge easily improvised. In reality, friction-based ignition requires skill, dry materials, and physical stamina. The misunderstanding is that matches or lighters are convenience items. The hidden science involves activation energy. Combustion requires sufficient heat to initiate exothermic oxidation. A butane lighter stores chemical energy under pressure and releases it instantly through piezoelectric spark or flint ignition. That concentrated reliability collapses multiple survival variables into one motion of the thumb. Disaster case studies repeatedly show that controlled fire reduces mortality by enabling water purification and food safety. Boiling water for 1 minute at sea level inactivates most pathogenic organisms. Heat denatures proteins in parasites and bacteria within food. The survival implication compounds. A single lighter can ignite hundreds of fires if conserved carefully. When fuel sources exist but ignition methods fail, stored calories remain biologically inaccessible due to contamination risk. Fire also functions as psychological stabilization. Light during darkness regulates circadian rhythm and reduces panic responses. As fuel sources diminish and weather conditions worsen, ignition tools become strategic assets. Those without reliable fire capacity face dehydration and hypothermia simultaneously. As the ability to create heat determines life expectancy, attention shifts to another silent vulnerability: dehydration under heat. The sixth cheap item destined to outvalue gold is oral rehydration salts, or their simplest equivalent, salt and sugar. The danger in collapse scenarios often swings between extremes of cold and heat. In hot climates or during intense labor, dehydration escalates quickly. Diarrheal illness from contaminated water compounds fluid loss. The misunderstanding is that water alone solves dehydration. The hidden science is cellular transport. Sodium-glucose co-transport mechanisms in the small intestine allow water absorption to accelerate when both sodium and glucose are present in specific ratios. This principle, discovered through decades of medical research, revolutionized treatment of cholera and severe diarrhea worldwide. Evidence from global health programs demonstrates that oral rehydration therapy has saved millions of lives by preventing fatal electrolyte imbalance. A simple mixture of clean water, salt, and sugar, in correct proportions, enhances fluid retention far more effectively than water alone. The survival implication is profound. In austere environments without intravenous fluids, this inexpensive mixture prevents circulatory collapse from dehydration. Muscle function, cognitive clarity, and cardiovascular stability depend on electrolyte balance. As gastrointestinal illness spreads in unsanitary conditions, communities with knowledge and access to rehydration salts maintain functional capacity while others weaken rapidly. And as weakness spreads, the final overlooked item begins to determine long-term resilience: basic mechanical tools. The seventh item is not glamorous. It is the multi-purpose hand tool, adjustable wrench, screwdriver set, manual can opener. In normal life, these objects are peripheral. In collapse, they become extensions of survival engineering. The danger arises when infrastructure partially fails rather than disappears completely. Water pumps require manual priming. Solar panels need rewiring. Doors must be reinforced. Canned food must be opened without electric appliances. The misunderstanding is that survival is primarily about stockpiling. The hidden science is systems maintenance. Mechanical leverage multiplies human force. A wrench converts torque efficiently, allowing repairs that bare hands cannot accomplish. Historical examples from prolonged blackouts show that communities with mechanical competence restore partial function faster. Access to stored canned food becomes irrelevant without a way to open containers. A simple manual can opener transforms inaccessible calories into sustenance. The survival implication extends into social dynamics. Individuals who can repair, modify, and maintain equipment become central nodes in post-collapse networks. Tools translate knowledge into applied resilience. As weeks turn into months, stored resources deplete. Adaptation replaces consumption as the primary survival strategy. Gold will retain symbolic allure, but symbolism does not filter pathogens, compress arteries, retain heat, ignite fuel, balance electrolytes, contain waste, or turn bolts. Cheap items engineered around physical laws will dictate survival outcomes. As infrastructure fractures further and supply chains remain dormant, the question shifts from what is valuable in markets to what is indispensable in biology. And when biology becomes the ultimate currency, overlooked objects quietly ascend into instruments of continuity. Right.